What's up, dudes? Welcome back to another episode of Rhomas Men's Team. Pretty simple. We are a group of guys helping each other make progress towards each other's goals. If you're new to the channel, awesome and welcome. If you want to help support the channel and join our pro team, head over to rhomasteam.com/pro, where you can contribute to us on a donation basis. We also give you access to exclusive content, mastermind groups, etc., etc. So anyway, hope you enjoy this episode, and we'll see you on the team. Mr. Ray, what is up, brother?
Life is good, Wes. How you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm in Memphis right now. I have a business pitch meeting later on today, and Memphis has been very hospitable to us, so I appreciate it.
You had any tasty Memphis-style barbecue?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's good stuff, man. I will say, though, I'm ready to get back to California.
To the Rhomas Density Diet Bowl?
Dude, yeah, the food down here is definitely different than what I'm used to. And just like the amount of, like, I instantly, like, within 15 minutes of eating that, type of food, calorically dense as opposed to nutritionally dense food, I feel horrible, like literally just horrible. I went to the gym last night and it was just like, oh man, like this is not okay. And the crazy thing is, man, we have generations of people raised on this type of food. Yeah, it's pretty wild. Like, talk about, I did the research. I think like 2,900 some people died in 9/11, and then roughly 2,300 die per day in America of heart disease. It's just like putting that scope in perspective, and it's like, holy shit, eating this kind of food, you can definitely understand why. But it's delicious.
Yeah, we and I had a quiet weekend in the country together. But 3 hours away, but to drive home, we had like a deli sandwich and some pizza. So I went to the gym last night, and yeah, I was moving a little slower as a result.
Yeah, it sounds like we both got to get back on the wagon. I'm going to eat another round of horrible food today. My host is very gracious and makes me want, I feel obligated to eat whatever they prepare. Yeah. But I will start losing weight again tomorrow.
Well, we're sending our thoughts and prayers, Wes. I mean,
yeah, thanks.
In this difficult time. So apropos the format today, as the gentlemen know, we're going to be digging into the John Gottman book, the John and Julie Gottman book, 8 Dates, where they set up 8 separate conversations for you and your loved one to have to better understand yourself and each other and build a stronger relationship. Date number 1 is trust and commitment, which is the foundation of every relationship, whether it's employer, employee, boyfriend, girlfriend, intra-family members, husband and wife especially. I think chapter 1 should be trust, commitment, and communication. It sounds like from the comments, Gunther elected to go with the communication route this weekend instead of just kind of cramming his thing down. I'm real proud of you, Gunther, for doing that.
Absolutely. Congratulations, Gunther. And probably these conversations coming up will give you more groundwork. I'm not sure if you've gotten the book yet, but we'll give you more groundwork to have a conversation with your girl.
Yeah, and for Gunther or any of the gentlemen, if what we're talking about verbally, resonates with you, feel free to throw it in the comments, like something you're going through or that you went through or lessons learned. So trust, can I just get right into it, Wes?
Hell yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so in chapter 1, trust, it starts out with a good definition of trust. Trust is about more than not just cheating on each other, which is a simple way to think about commitment and trust. It's just giving your word on something, whether it's a big thing or a small thing, and being true to it. Yep. Trust is built. Obviously, trust is built by sexual fidelity, not stepping out on your partner. But more than that, trust is built by being home when you say you're going to be home. being on time when you say you're going to meet your spouse somewhere. I don't know if any of the guys can relate, but like when you're out drinking with your boys and your wife or your girlfriend's texting you, when will you be home? You said you'd be home by now. And then the phone calls, and sometimes we just turn off the phone, right? And then come home at like 3 a.m. or something. Not a great trust building exercise. I understand. I've been there. But communication is a better strategy in the long run. And that is like maybe, telling her in advance you're going out with your boys, it's going to be late, rather than promising that you'll be home at 9 p.m. just to shut her up or just to get out the door in one piece, right?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
So there's trust. Giving your word on something and being true to it. Commitment, there's a good definition here. When we make our relationship a priority by showing that it's a priority, we build trust and demonstrate our loyalty far beyond any words. And that's how you build commitment, by showing up when you say you're going to show up, making your relationship a priority over whatever else is going on in your life, your to-do list, fun stuff. Any thoughts, or shall I keep going?
Oh, dude, yeah, we could riff off of this for hours. Yeah, do you mind if I make a few comments?
Go for it.
So, okay, so the first thing is if you haven't thought about this topic, trust, it's a very deep topic. If you can, take some time, go and Google Brene Brown's Braving acronym on trust, and you will see that just the research shows that this goes at least several different metrics deep. I think it's 7 or so metrics deep. I think the first thing that got out of this chapter is define what you call trust and tell that to your partner, and have your partner give you the same courtesy. And then also bring the stories to that. So for instance, my future partner, I will tell the story of like my dad leaving. Okay, so then I'm going to give her details and what that means for me, because oftentimes when we bring something to the table, if we just bring the emotion without the story, the other person has a hard time grasping it. So that way, for instance, like my mom is horrible with time. So my dad wasn't around, so my mom would watch me, and then she would say, oh, well, I'm going to go out to the grocery store. She wouldn't come back for like 4 hours, literally 3 to 4 hours. This was not a rare occasion. Now, as an adult, we can handle that. But as a child, you're like, oh, mom's dead, or like she's also left, so this is contextual. So my next partner, I will tell her those stories, because then when she does something similar, like goes out to the grocery store and doesn't come back for a half of a day, she knows that most likely that's the story that my brain subconscious will automatically reference. So I'm bringing that to the table, not just, oh, you didn't call me. Right. And then if she can tell me the same, so it's like human beings, we carry all of our mental baggage to the table. She knows that that's what I'm going to be fighting with. And I know her version of what she's going to be fighting with. So important to have that level set meeting. And Gunther, I would throw this out to you as well. Like you're going through this right now. It's like really define each other's trust metrics. And then it's not for us to judge those metrics. It is for us to be compliant with those metrics. Like if Ray and I are in a relationship and he tells me that, oh, when you don't return my phone call within an hour, I get very insecure. Now, that's my time to speak up and say, hey, I don't know that I could be able to do that during work time, right? So how can we have a coping mechanism? But that's the fork in the road where you have to agree or come up with a workaround. But here's the thing, like Jordan Peterson said, do not agree to something you do not agree to. So especially during these conversations of trust, if Ray tells me that like he expects a call back within an hour of when I call him, and I agree, it is now up to me. It is my responsibility to comply with his need and under the agreement that I made, if that makes sense. So Ray, what are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts on that are it just makes me think of my own personal journey where I have this amazing art client, a husband and wife. I've told you about them. They've really changed my life in terms of they're so rich. They never made an art collection before, and they've given me basically free reign to help them build an art collection worth millions of dollars. If they don't, if I text them, hey, how does that painting look that we installed yesterday? If they don't get back to me within, I'll be honest, I would say 5 minutes. Yeah. I'm like, they hate me. They've moved on. They've found someone new. Like I go through the what is the 4 stages of grief. like right away. So Wes, like what, and I mean, I probably need to dig deep and understand why I go into that. Like, oh my God, I'm so replaceable. I've been replaced, kind of internal monologue. Right. And then what can I do? Like or is this for a different topic? Like, how can I manage my own insecurity on this issue?
Oh yeah, dude, exactly. Like, so for instance, this is where I think it's what is rational, which you're probably not going to get towards, and then what is reasonable. Like 5 minutes would say, and this is where like humans need to talk. In my opinion, 5 minutes, it's like, Ray, I love you, man, but we have a client, right? Like client art professional relationship. I cannot get back to you in 5 minutes. That is not.
I don't have to.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right now, this is if you want to have that conversation with them, right? But let's assume that you're comfortable enough for them to have the conversation. Then you guys can come up with some sort of agreement. Now, I assume they're not going to comply with 5 minutes. So let's just say the agreement is 24 hours, right? Which is way more reasonable. Now it's up to you, in my opinion. Then it's back on you. It's like, okay, do you agree with that? Of course you're going to, because otherwise, like, you don't get the client. So it's like, okay, now that space between 4 minutes and 59 seconds and 24 hours is on you. So how do you develop coping mechanisms? And that's your cross that you have to bear. You know, that's the good thing, right? Like, you know, then that's your journey. And I think in intimate relationships, it's the same thing. It's like, hey, babe, I'm working. I cannot get back to you in an hour sometimes. If, for instance, if I'm in a meeting, I cannot check my phone, right? So, and then you can get very specific. Obviously, don't go so specific where it makes this agreement so hard where you can't do it. But it's like, what is that agreement? And then try your best to comply with it. And then know that you're not going to get it 100%. But it's giving a best efforts situation. But I think the most toxic thing that you can do, and I've been guilty of this, is make an agreement out of just you're frustrated, you don't want to hear the other person, like, you know, complain anymore, and then not meet the agreement, and then be such an asshole where then you turn it back onto that person and you're like, well, I never, you know, that's a bullshit rule anyway. It's like, dude, you agreed with it, right? That's the problem. So, and that's a very toxic cycle versus like make agreements, build towards a third entity, try your best. You're going to be, hopefully you're 80% successful. And if you're not, then you either have to recommit or you have to recreate the commitment.
Yeah, I think that the coping mechanisms that I need to come up with during that 24-hour period that in the hypothetical you discussed, that comes up later in the triggers discussion, right? Where we analyze, like, why do I get so nervous when I don't hear back from someone I'm invested in, you know? My wife, I've been with her 23 years, so I'm a little more comfortable. I'm a little more comfortable with I give her a little longer kind of fuse, you know, than 4 or 5 minutes, but it's something about a relationship that I'm not confident about. You know, like, I suppose if I was on Tinder messaging people, I'd be a nervous wreck waiting for them to reply. I would. But let's move on to this interesting metaphor they use called windows and walls, right? When you're married or otherwise committed to a partner, ideally what you do is create a wall around the two of you with an open window between you. So all the negative static, the beautiful bimbos on Instagram, whatever, that's outside the walls, and you have personal, private access to each other through the window. People who are unhappy in their relationships start confiding in another person about their relationship, and what they're doing is opening a window to this outside person. And when you keep this new platonic or emotional relationship secret from your partner, you start building a wall between yourself and your primary partner. Now, I've gone through this in recovery where, you know, in recovery in like AA or NA, you're going through this very difficult challenge with the other people in the group. And it's very easy to, like, for lack of a better word, like, rely on them emotionally,
Mm-hmm.
and even fall in love with them in a kind of a misguided way. So one of the pillars of NA and AA and all 12-step groups is no relationships within the group. Recovery must come first.
Hey dudes, sorry for the interruption here. Just wanted to let you know, if you want to join our pro team, go to romasteam.com/pro. You can help support the channel. You will also get access to exclusive content, masterminds, one-on-one sessions, etc. All right, back to the episode.
And I think that, and that's because really, like, what you're doing is you're opening a window to outside of your core relationship.
Right.
So commitment. This was another good one that really hit home for me. Commitment means never threatening to leave. Commitment means never threatening to leave, even if at times you might want to. It also means caring about your partner's pain as much, if not more, than your own. Choosing commitment means accepting your partner exactly as he or she is, despite their flaws. The never threatening to leave part, for a long time, when we used to fight, like, you used to dangle the threatening to leave over me. Like she used to, in fact, have a divorce list of, like, a to-do list of things I need to do, like get the refund on this, follow up with the insurance company on that, like stuff that for whatever reason I was just unable to prioritize or get done. And so she never left, and she didn't mean it. But what she was doing was just trying to get through to me with that, or like expressing her exasperation at the situation, right? But it's absolutely fatal to a commitment. Threaten to leave, right?
And I've been guilty on the other side. I've been guilty on the other side. And then I learned from a Tony Robbins relationship course, like, to never do that. Now I think in a marriage it might be different.
But ASB just said when she threatens to leave, she's telling you her boundaries. 100% she is the non-negotiables. However, ASB, I think we can agree she's telling me in an unhealthy way. Sorry, Wes, Go ahead.
Yep. Yeah, no, exactly. And I think, so my personal belief on this is, like, divorce is a real thing. Cutting off committed relationships is a real thing. I think it's not until the 1 yard line that you should actually bring it up. So, for instance, like, if the rule is never threaten to leave, never threaten to leave, never threaten to leave, and then leave, right? Like, that's it's like, holy shit. Like, well, I wish I would have told me, like, but I do think oftentimes the threats are empty. And that's a problem, because I think it can create a feeling of massive insecurity on the other person. Like, they're just constantly, like we've talked before, hovering their hand over the eject button or the nuke button. And I don't think that's fair. I also think it's more rational to say, like, no, that's a real possibility. So, for instance, and probably talk about that up front, like, hey, if you cheat on me, there's a very good likelihood that I will leave you, right? Let's talk about that now when it didn't happen. And then if it does happen, it's like, I probably should bring that up. Like, hey, I just want to let you know, I'm going to try to work through this with you, but I'm 99% sure I'm going to leave you. Right. So, like, that's how serious it is. So I kind of like ASB's answer, and I like your answer, Ray. I think it's somewhere in the middle, right? Like, threaten to leave when it's actually a real threat. Like, hey, just so you know, this is the next step for me. Like, I'm out. Right. So we either, like, you press the emergency button now and we have to, like, handle this shit. Right. Like, you need to take off a couple days of work, and I'll take a couple days of work, and we're going to handle this, or we're going to spend the whole weekend, versus, like, oh, hey, man, you didn't do the dishes again. Like, I need a partner who does dishes. So, like, that sort of thing. What are your thoughts?
100%. And we're going to get to this in date number 2, how to handle conflict, right? Where we lay out our non-negotiables and right, and talk our way through conflicts during the quiet times, so that when there is a blow up, we know how to act in a healthy way.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. We'll get to that when we get to that. But yeah, it's no different than practicing any other thing. Jiu-jitsu, sports.
Right. So one of the things you want to avoid but just to get back to the text, one of the things you would want to avoid, Wes, is just to talk to a female colleague at work, and tell her why it bothers you and rely on her for emotional support, because you will be opening a window outside of your fortress with your spouse, right? And and where the honest communication should be with the person who you're having the problem with.
Oh yeah. This is a major thing. I've been guilty of it. I don't know if you have been, but I'm sure every human.
Dude, I'm the Charles Manson of this kind of thing.
So, and here's the sneaky thing, right? Like, we can play it off real good. We're like, oh, what are you talking about? I was just talking to her. It's like, it's not a big deal. She's a friend, right? Like, she's a work colleague. What are you talking about? It's like, and only you will know. And that's where it's so important to like have I think one of the most important relationships a man can have is a relationship to his word, to himself. So it's like, I gave your word to you, you gave your word to me. It's up to me to be compliant with that word and how seriously I take my own word. With that being said, man, like, it's the whole AA thing. If you don't want to slip, don't go where it's slippery, right? Like put up boundaries between you and anyone who could add toxicity or threat to your relationship. And that means at the seed of it, right? Like, you when you look a little too long or smile a little too long at that female at the office, right? Like, and only you will know that, and nobody else can know that. It's like, but that's the seed. That's the seed that leads into like, hey, you want to go grab coffee real quick downstairs, right? Like, oh yeah, sure, no big deal. It catches me, like, I can easily defend myself, right? No, bullshit. That seed was started 3 weeks ago. And that is unacceptable. You wouldn't want that, and I wouldn't want that if my partner did that to me.
Mm-hmm. Right, and the book gets into numerous nitty-gritties like that, where a guy it gets into a scenario where a guy is talking to a woman at a party, and the wife's like, it's time to go, and he's like, oh fuck. I don't want to leave, right? And why doesn't he want to leave? Because he's having a nice interaction with a woman who's listening to him, rather than the one who's been ignoring him for the last 5 years, right? Mm-hmm. And in the car, they're arguing, why can't you be more like her? Of course I wanted to stay, because she was actually, it was a woman being nice to me for a change, right? Unlike you. So this, I think, and so that hypothetical, or that might have actually been, I don't think there are any hypotheticals in this book. I think this is actual patient testimonials, right? That is a negative comparison. Like, why can't she be more like Deborah at the office? Mm-hmm. Like, these are negative comparisons, right? One step that cascades towards all betrayals, exactly, the seed, right? Making negative comparisons about our partner with real or imagined alternative relationship partners. We call these, John and Julie call these negative comps. Rather than nurturing gratitude for what you have with your partner, you're nurturing resentment for what's missing. What do you think of that? Negative comparisons? Have you ever been guilty of that? Yeah. I know I have.
Absolutely. And I think a huge culprit is actually the imagined. Actually, it's weird where there's a hybrid of imagined and real. Mm-hmm. It's like, Deborah at the office, she's perfect. Like, she would never say this to me. It's like, bullshit. Right. Deborah would say this to you week number 2 of your relationship.
It's a real person in an imagined fantasy.
Yep. 100%, man. I mean, and
keep it moving.
Yeah, just laughing at ASB's comment.
Wes, to tie it to the threatening to leave, couples that are truly committed to each other don't have one foot out the door. They don't threaten to leave when times get tough, and they don't spend time thinking that their ideal partner is still out there somewhere. If things aren't going well in their relationship, they voice their concern to their partner instead of complaining about their partner to someone else. Yeah. Like ASB's ex, Deborah from The Office.
So, yes. Well, let me ask you this, right? Okay, so what if a guy, and let's say this is coming up for me right now. Okay, so where should I vent? should I be venting to my partner or should I be going to a therapist? Like what is that?
Well, I think on date number 2, they say you have to tell your partner, right? You have to, and hopefully it won't be venting, right? Where you release all the hot air inside your body till your temperature reduces to like a normal 89.5 or whatever the normal body temperature is.
Yeah.
What is it, by the way?
Isn't it like 98.6?
Okay, of course you know. But yeah, so I think you have to have that conversation with her. Now, that I also like, I think it's okay to talk to your buddies about what a pain in the ass your wife is. Like, I can't imagine men enjoying sports without having that as a topic of conversation,
right.
You know? But I think it has so I think for most men, venting to your buddies about what a pain in the ass your wife is isn't like sowing the seeds of betrayal with you and Doug from the bowling league. Maybe it is. I mean, it's 2022, but more importantly, that conversation has to be had with your wife. You owe it to her, and you owe it to yourself to say that to her, so she has the opportunity to change, to improve your relationship and to improve your experience.
So am I hearing you correct? And let's say, like, because I'm developing my own philosophy on this as well. So it's like, in the case of needing to vent, it's to your partner first and foremost, or like fixing the problem. To the boys at the bowling club, or to a therapist.
Yes.
Never to a woman.
I mean, I get that's what the text is communicating.
Yeah. And I could agree with it, by the way.
Yeah, I guess so. Like, it just, yeah, but like, I guess my hesitation is because it's so intoxicating to tell it to another woman, right? They're like, yeah. So I think that's probably the right way to go about it.
Are you hesitant? Are you hesitant to agree to it because
no, I'm saying because I've been guilty so many times of like complaining about my partner to another woman, an understanding, passive woman, you know, who's a great listener, and like, yeah, I have to give that up because that is like, I may not be sowing the seeds of betrayal with that person specifically, but I'm not solving the problem. I'm fooling myself if I think I'm solving the problem by telling Deborah from the office.
Well, but you'd be doing the same thing with a male.
Yes, but in the case of me, I would not be sowing the seeds of betrayal. Right?
Right. So then we get back to telling any woman. I mean, well, I assume it would, and this is where it gets slippery, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, because I almost would say tell no woman. Like, I might adopt that as my own principle. Like, just don't talk to any woman, because then what you could do is like, you'd say, well, it's only going to be attractive women that I can't talk to.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, well, wait a second. And then now all of a sudden you're giving yourself that little gray area versus like line in the sand, no women.
Well, Wes, I think what we can both agree on is it's not healthy to tell your buddies and tell another woman, but not address the issue with your partner at home.
Well,
right?
So let me ask you this. So in the sake of helping each other and the team make progress, and I would push on the guys listening to this to make the same commitment. So Ray, as a result of this conversation, what is your, if any, updated commitment in this area? So like, I'll tell you mine. Mine is, as of right now, to not talk to any women unless it's a therapist about my partner and I's problems. Like I will commit to no women.
Well, yeah, okay. I can commit to that too. And but again, I think I think you're not you're missing the point if you don't tell any women and you don't tell your spouse.
Okay,
what's
totally.
bothering, right? And I'm
Completely
not
agree.
accusing you of that, but I'm just rolling that into the next point, which is honesty and vulnerability. The more
Yep.
honest we are, the more we can discover that our partner really loves us for who we are and not the idealized version of us that shows up when we first begin to date. Like, for example, the idealized version of us that doesn't mention when she piles her laundry everywhere. The
Yep.
idealized version of us that doesn't mention when she piles dishes in the sink. Like, I think
Right.
we owe it to her to tell her what's bothering us, right?
Oh yeah, and I would also say, oh sorry, go.
Well, no, go, please go.
I would also say if you guys are listening and making these commitments, I would say also you should give your partner the respect of telling her your new value in this area. Because then if it's a value for you, if you did decide that today, then it has to be communicated because I assume you would want it reciprocated. Right. So now that you've thought through, it's like, okay, here's why I wouldn't tell another female this and so on and so on. Okay, shit. Well, if I invert that, I probably don't want her going to and doing the same thing. So like, can we have that open conversation and do I have her compliance on the other side? And if not, then how do we work through that?
And it's not, I mean, you can look at it two ways. You can say to yourself, I've had this conversation and now I know I'm safe knowing that it's not out there sowing the seeds of betrayal and flirting with other guys. But also you can say to yourself, I now know that will come to me if I'm doing something that's bothering her rather than like this annoying behavior building up and setting like kind of a time bomb for our relationship.
Yes.
Right.
Cool. Can I throw out one other thing?
Please.
Let's assume trust is broken. You've given your trust metrics and all of a sudden violates it.
Hold on.
What?
Wes?
Yep.
Examples of breaking trust. Not showing up on time. Not making your partner a priority. Not being there when your partner's hurting or sick. Not contributing to the well-being of the family, a me rather than we attitude. Not keeping promises. Keeping secrets. Lying. Humiliating or putting down a partner in public or private. Committing to an act of emotional or physical infidelity. Being physically violent. So let's say, please, pick one from that list where you, in this hypothetical, your partner has broken the trust.
Well, let's even say just the commitment that we just made. All of a sudden, I talk to my partner and we say, hey, we're not going to go to the opposite sex to express emotions and you have to come to me, right? Let's say that happens. Past me, if that violation were to happen, would get into retaliation mode.
Right.
Why? It'd be protection and be like, okay, no, you didn't hurt my feelings. No big deal. But now this is one I have in my back pocket. So that way next week or whenever next year, when that happens, I can instantly pull that back out and be like, hey, I didn't break any rules. Like you did this. I just did the same thing you did.
I was just using up my West points. I was saving up my West points, right?
Yep. Yeah. And dude, I think that is even more toxic than probably the original crime. Because now you're setting a pattern and a lack of a standard. You're lowering the standard versus like, it's like, no, you keep on playing your best game despite the fact that somebody violated it.
Right.
I think that is the most healthy pattern to get out of the toxic pattern.
So let's say your partner humiliates you or puts you down in public or private. Immature Wes would have like swallowed that and just waited and then humiliated her at a later time and seeing like, hey, shoe doesn't feel too good on the other foot now, does it? Right. Rather than telling her in the moment. And I think I see this in other couples where there's sniping. I think I've brought this up before, right? Where it's like humorous insults kind of like lobbed at each other, which is a put down or a humiliation with the words just kidding at the end of it, but it still kind of builds up like a poison, right?
Yep.
And so when it does that in private to me these days, I try to communicate to her that I don't like that, you know. if I have if there's something about the portion of food that I have like in front of on my plate, and she says some kind of joke,
Right.
I try to tell her I don't appreciate that,
Yeah.
or right. So just an example, like humiliating or putting down a partner in public or private. I'm especially sensitive to that one, and it might take a couple of times of saying I don't appreciate that. Like if your partner is being physically violent with you, it might take a couple of times of you saying I don't appreciate that.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Or
No,
not showing up on time.
That.
Right. Like I think this is it's an interesting list of behaviors that we can tell ourselves aren't breaking the trust, right? Not showing up on time, not making your partner a priority, not keeping your promises. It can be easy for us to like morally negotiate our way out of those things, right?
Without a doubt.
But we have to remember that these are the little ways in which it's not just not fucking Deborah from the office, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, bravo, sir. Like you have maintained your wife's trust in that way. But these micro habits, and again, we come back to micro habits all the time in this program. Micro habits are the way you build trust or break trust.
Yeah. And Ray, you start to hit on an interesting point there. It's like another toxic pattern that I have seen and been guilty of. It's like, well, at least I didn't cheat on you. So it's like you're contrasting it with some like most toxic situation relative to what you're doing right now. So yeah, I didn't show up to dinner on time, but it's not like I cheated on you. And it's like, that's not fair to the other person's emotions. Again, if you've gone through the exercise and you've told each other your trust metrics and you're not complying with them, it is not fair for me to then say to you, well, at least I didn't cheat on you. At least I didn't do drugs. At least I didn't do this. At least I didn't do this. It's like, no, you fucking broke one of the agreements that you made on the trust metrics.
Yeah, that reminds me of the negative comparisons. Deborah from the office would never talk to me like that, right? Like it's at least I didn't. I mean, it's not like I cheated on you. That you're trying to minimize the trust breaking behavior of not showing up on time or divert and distract.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Now, I also simultaneously don't think that gives the partner just free reign to freak out about anything, because that's where we get into cognitive behavioral therapy, but that's a separate topic.
It's like next chapter. That's conflict.
Yeah, exactly. Now that's why it's so important to have this conversation of trust metrics. And I would say, Gunther, if this is one of the areas that like you're talking to your partner about, like going actually like, and all the men listen to this, actually go through these examples. Like treat this as a workshop, not as just a passive, like, oh, this book is kind of cool. Actually go and do it. That's 97% of the value. The 3% is just us talking about it. But the remainder is like you actually doing it, because your trust metrics are very likely to be different than mine. So go and look at this book and see what trust metrics they bring up. And then also please like go and Google Brene Brown's Braving trust metrics, because that will probably it'll put words to your actual beliefs that maybe you haven't articulated yet.
Mm-hmm. And Wes, like there's so much meat on the bone of each chapter here. We might end up going one chapter per session.
I agree.
So next up, every day in every relationship, these questions hang over everything, these important questions. So think about like when you don't show up on time, if you're keeping secrets, if you're lying, if you are humiliating your partner. Again, like Lucas said in the comments, being physically violent should probably be a deal breaker, not merely a trust breaker. But I think it's both. But I agree with you, Lucas. It's like being physically violent in this day and age. A male who's being physically violent to a female, I think that female has the right to pull the ripcord. And the male has the right to pull the ripcord too in a physically violent relationship. It's just it carries a little more social stigma, right? But okay, so Wes, in our loving relationship hypothetical that we're talking about, you and me, if you're not showing up on time, if you're not making me a priority, if you're not being there for me when I'm hurting or sick, every day in every relationship, these are the questions that hang over our behavior. One, do you cherish me? Do you, Wes? Do you cherish me?
Absolutely. Absolutely, Raymond.
So like, right. So like by showing up on time or showing up late, how does that answer the questions? These following questions. One, do you cherish me? How important am I to you? Do I come first in your life? Will you take me for granted? Are you always looking around for someone better than me? Will you care when I'm upset with you and listen to my concerns? Now, these are like, for some of the men out there, some of the real men like Cole, who works on like power lines, in the heartland of the country, like maybe he'll have trouble saying, do you cherish me to his wife or girlfriend? Maybe not though. Maybe not. But these are, whether you like it or not, gentlemen, these are the questions that this is like the foundational like software inside your mind.
Yep.
When you're in a relationship with someone, it's more than just, will you cheat on me or not? Right. It's more than, right. We're more complicated apes than that. Do you cherish me? How important am I to you? Do I come first in your life? Will you take me for granted? Are you always looking around for someone better than me? Will you care when I'm upset with you? When listen to my concerns? Because like in the Rhomas program, now correct me if I'm wrong, Wes. You don't want an average husband or an average boyfriend or an average father to come out of this program, right?
Exactly.
Like you want an outstanding husband, an outstanding father, an outstanding leader, an outstanding boyfriend to come out of the Rhomas program. And so these kind of questions should be governing. This is the kind of internal accountability you should have. Like when I'm showing up on time or when I'm being late, what does that signal communicate? Think about if you're a client in business and you someone has asked you for an appointment, or you have asked for an appointment and they show up late. What does that signal to you? Mm-hmm. Right? It can be fatal. Yeah. It can be fatal to the to the relationship.
Yep.
Commitment for John and Julie Gottman is about first thinking and then communicating to one's partner that he or she is precious and not replaceable. And that's something I struggled with for a long time, because I came to the relationship with more resources than me, richer than me. And so I felt replaceable for a long time, because I felt like there was a disproportionate power dynamic going on, right? Because of the money in the bank. And so we had to work, and we still have to work on that feeling of this instant feeling of replaceability that triggers me, right? And we're just and I don't think that goes away. It's just something we work at, and I'm a lot better at managing that now.
Oh yeah. Yeah, exactly. Completely agree with that. Like, how do you manage that? What are the coping mechanisms with it? And then I don't know if you want to look at what Zach said, but I think it's just a spot on, perfect example. I'm going to read the comments to everybody. And then after that, this will be the last one, if that's cool with you, Ray.
Yes.
Okay, so Zach said, the showing up on time thing. My girlfriend was raised being allowed to be ready to go somewhere later than the time that was planned. At the beginning of our relationship, I was all right with it. Then it started joking, being semi-serious, that I just assume she's going to be late 15, 20 minutes longer to get ready. So I just tell her an earlier time, which is a very common coping mechanism, right? Now she gets upset when we are early for stuff because she could have had more time to get ready. Okay, so Ray, what are your thoughts on that? Because this is, Zach, thank you so much for bringing up the example. Like, this is a very common example that sounds innocent on the surface, but can go very deep and cause extra problems.
I'm dealing with the same issue with one of the artists in my gallery program. I deal with a couple of people that are supremely professional, really want a successful partnership with me, and show up on time and have their goals aligned with mine. I have another one who is younger, not as far along on their journey, and they are 20 or 30 minutes late for everything. And I mean, I'm waiting outside in the car for 15, 20 minutes. And I complain to everyone else except this person.
Yep.
And I've done the like, tell them it starts at 3:15 so that they're ready by 3:30 kind of thing. And if I'll be honest, I'm going to get like step one is getting my assistant to have the tough conversation with this artist. And step two is me having the tough conversation. No, I have to have that tough conversation with the artist.
Oh yeah. Okay. So my position on this, I despise invisible economies, despise them. And this would be an example of a microcosmic invisible economy, Zach. By the way, my mother, like I have to do this for my mother. So like the invisible economy that you're creating, Zach, is I'm going to tell her that it's now 15, 20 minutes earlier. Right. And then eventually she's going to figure it out. Right. And then you're going to have to adapt even more. So like literally it got to the point with my mom where we would tell her like it's an hour earlier. And then eventually it's like, okay, we're just telling her like it's in the morning when it's really in the afternoon. Like it can get there is no limit. Like there's literally no limit. My mom showed up one time to my little cousin's birthday party 2.5 hours late. It was at a restaurant, right? Like not like it's unreasonable. You're now in a different meal, right? Like, do you know what I mean?
It went from lunch to dinner.
Exactly. Why would you even show up, right? But that's how bad an invisible economy can get. Versus a conversation, in my opinion, that says, hey, right, like we need to talk about our values here, especially if it's an intimate relationship. Like, here's my expectations. What, if any, are like your expectations? And here's what that means to me. And here's, by the way, what that could mean to other people. Like when you show up 30 minutes late in some circles, you're not friends, right? Like you're being disrespectful in that situation. So it's like, get real clear on that. Cause this is a trust metric. It sounds like, Zach, that you and your wife like have not come to reconcile yet, or you and your girlfriend. Now, then from there, it's like, okay, what is the coping mechanism? Like, what's the agreement? Maybe it's like, hey, I'm not going to create a false time zone for you. It's, we are expected to leave at this time. And Zach, what I personally like is like, if you want to go this route, like, what are your standards? Okay, Jen, if you're not ready by 3 p.m., I am leaving. Or Zach, maybe that's not good for your relationship. And then you agree, just like, okay, you're going to quote, support your partner. She doesn't want to meet you halfway. And you're just going to be perpetually late to everything. And I don't care. Like I'm no judgment either way. For me, it does seem like one way, like times work for a reason. You know, like timing is very convenient. Like if I need to meet Ray at 3 p.m., like there's a reason that we suggest that, because then I might have a meeting at 4 p.m. Like there's logistics there that I think it's more reasonable and rational to be on time for things. But if you and your girlfriend come up with whatever agreement it is, like stick to the agreement. But don't either of you make an agreement and then not stick to it and then make the other person the bad guy. So, and it's most likely going to be her, Zach, if you don't mind me saying this, like, if she's a reasonable person, most likely she will say, yeah, okay, you know what, you're right. You've come to me in a safe space. You did it in a safe way. I do need to be better about time. And then sure as shit, next event, right, you're going to be 20 minutes late and you might try to keep her accountable. And there's a certain chance that she could say, well, it doesn't matter. You're being too serious about it. No, it's like, we agree to this. So it's going to take some time to retune those strings in whatever side you agree. Ray, what are your thoughts?
Wes, you asked for a hard exit at 12. So we're going to have to continue this conversation in the Discord, Zach. Please keep us posted in this Discord. And when we have more time, we can chew on this a little more. I just wanted to do a 30-second roundup on the trust and commitment chapter. Date number 1. Trust is cherishing each other and showing your partner that you can be counted on. And this is in big ways and this is in small ways.
Yes.
Choosing commitment means accepting your partner exactly as he or she is, despite their flaws, not comparing them to Deborah at the office, not looking around to see if there's a more compatible fit. That's your trust. That's your commitment. Thank you for tuning in, gentlemen. We'll see you on the Discord, and we'll see you on Friday to discuss chapter 2, date number 2, managing conflict.
You dudes are awesome. Ray, thanks for keeping me accountable. Love you guys.
Yes,
Have a great week.
Yes, sir. Thank you, gentlemen.